Flayn represents the very best of the Nabateans within the context of Three Houses' story, as she hasn't participated in Rhea's corruption and consistently helps many of the students of Garreg throughout her supports with them. In the context of the overarching narrative of Three Houses, Flayn is a somewhat substantial character, being hunted down by the Agarthans because of her young Nabatean blood for use in their experimentation. Her origins are initially unclear to the player, however her exceptional background is soon revealed and her nature becomes more clear. Flayn is largely controlled by her overprotective father Seteth, because he fears for her safety, but through the course of the game, Flayn wishes to break free of that mold so that she can live life the way she wants to. Flayn is fundamentally a character who is one on the cusp of adulthood and seeks to experience life as much as she can because of her long slumber after she was injured during the War of Heroes. In meeting new people and expressing herself, she continually provides an air of kindness, authenticity, and simple beauty to enhance the lives of the students that she comes in contact with. The primary conflict within Flayn's life is the intricate balance between the control of her father Seteth and the freedom that she seeks to live her own life. Both have taken up their respective positions based off the same traumatizing event, but interpret that event differently, leading to their conflicting viewpoints. Centuries before the events of Three Houses' main story, Seteth and Flayn were instead known as the Saints Keyhole and Sethlin. They were some of the many Nabateans who inhabited the earth alongside humanity until the early Agarthans acted against them in a bid to acquire more power. The Agarthans attacked the center of Nabatean life at Xanadu and killed many of the children of the goddess. However, Flayn and her parents managed to survive. Eventually, Rhea sought to get revenge against the Agarthans for their betrayal, leading to her and the remaining Nabateans fighting in a war against them with some human allies. Flayn ends up convincing Seteth to let her participate directly in one battle during the War of Heroes. During this battle, Flayn's mother passes away, and Flayn sustains serious injuries, forcing her to enter a long regenerative slumber. It's this backstory that colors Flayn's relationship with her father throughout the entirety of the game. After Flayn awakens from her slumber, she and her father take up false identities within the Church of Seiros, with the express purpose of protecting Flayn from being targeted by the Agarthans. Flayn is somewhat unhappy with her situation at the start of the game, because Seteth ends up becoming highly overprotective of her, and keeps her from being able to sufficiently live her own life for fear of losing her.
There is a certain somebody who seems determined to get in the way of my friendships with my classmates.
What? That's horrible. Fear not. I will handle this scoundrel for you. Just tell me his name.
It is you, brother. Now then, I must be on my way.
Eventually, though, in their A support, Flayn comes to acknowledge that Seteth only meddles in her life because of how much he worries about her as her father. They both come to understand each other's perspectives in regards to Flayn's near-death experience and share a single moment of mutual understanding. The next defining characteristic of Flayn is her kindness and empathy when interacting with many of the students of Garreg. In her support chain with Dimitri, the stakes start out fairly low, with Flayn starting out insecure about her cooking, and Dimitri providing kind feedback about it. Eventually, however, their B support gets more serious, with Dimitri revealing the fact that he is continually haunted by the tragedy of Duscur to Flayn. Flayn attempts to help Dimitri through his pain and grief by letting him know that she's sure that many of the people who died that day would likely have wanted him to remember them fondly. The statement shakes Dimitri, but the depth of his appreciation isn't expressed until later. Then, in their A support, Dimitri reveals that he lied to her in saying that he enjoyed her cooking and that he regretted doing it. Flayn comforts him by telling him that his sentiment was nonetheless kind. Eventually, in their A+ support, Flayn reveals her trauma to Dimitri by telling him about her fear of sleeping her life away, like she did after she was injured during the War of Heroes, and being forgotten. Dimitri lets her know that he will never forget Flayn because of the kind and warm memories that she evokes within him, particularly in the form of her cooking. Flayn's earnest attempts at cooking and helping Dimitri ultimately help him escape his dark thoughts and loop back to her to assuage her deep-seated fears as well. In her support chain with Felix, Flayn starts out asking him to chop some firewood for her. Flayn is amazed by his skill and asks him to chop other objects, but Felix refuses, stating that the point of a blade is to kill, typical of his one-track mind. Flayn becomes perplexed by the zeal that Felix has for hurting others through combat and seeks to find an alternative purpose for him. She reasons that in a world where Felix is successful and wins the war, there will ironically be no place for him moving forward due to the lack of conflict. Felix is shaken by this fact, but Flayn ends up reassuring him that she would be there to help him find a new purpose. Flayn works to have Felix look beyond his limited might makes right mindset to find higher purpose in life after he achieves his military goals. Finally, Flayn lends some encouragement and kind words to Manuela when discussing her past within the opera within their support chain. Where Manuela tends to look at the trials she had to face to be successful within the opera negatively, Flayn instead sees the beauty of her resolve and perseverance to achieve her dreams. Flayn's kindness ultimately helps Dimitri, Felix, and Manuela see the world beyond their negative or limited mindsets, providing new profound insight. Beyond her kindness and empathy, Flayn also seems to have a sort of infectious enthusiasm that rubs off on plenty of the characters within the game. The prime examples of Flayn's energy serving as an inspiration for other students is her interaction with Ignatz, where their supports inspire him to create art depicting the Saint Sethlin. Even though Ignatz is unaware of Flayn's true identity, Flayn's natural energy, passion, and kindness all stand out to Ignatz, providing him a different conception of what Saint Sethlin was like. Then, in her supports with Raphael, Flayn is amused and interested by Raphael's war cries and really wants to learn how to emulate his energy. So the preceding supports all have Flayn learning how to better harness her physical energy.
Killing is part of the job, but even so, there are times when I'm... There are times when I'm...
However, they really show the wealth of enthusiasm and interest that Flayn has in trying out all the things that life has to offer, trying to go beyond her comfort zone of training just her mind by trying to improve her body as well. Finally, even Linhart, who is all too often disinterested in other characters at the monastery, seems to take an interest in Flayn as she pertains to his crest research. He never directly states that he knows Flayn's true identity, but does note that he only began to research her history because she stood out to him and was genuinely interesting to him as a person. Flayn's energy and zeal for life are an interesting contrast to her traumatic fear of being unable to participate in it due to the long slumber that she endured after the War of Heroes. Finally, Flayn can be somewhat naive and scatterbrained over the course of the game, continually being unaware of the social customs of the current age. Her C support with Claude shows how Flayn doesn't have much of a concept of normal conversations of the time period due to her long slumber. Her support chain with Sylvain shows a slight bit of naivete when dealing with him, whether it's avoiding him in their C support or being oblivious to his advances in their B support. And in her support chain with Dedue, Flayn continually tries to prove herself cooking despite her many obvious flaws. Eventually she comes out on top, learning to temper her passion while understanding her limits as well. Now, Flayn's supports with Byleth showcase all of her aforementioned primary qualities, with her providing an insightful and kind account of Byleth, continually getting ahead of herself, and coming off as a bit scatterbrained. Throughout the entirety of their support chain, Flayn insightfully views Byleth as a calm ocean, in that they appear tranquil at the surface, but are teeming with a great deal of activity and life underneath that surface. Flayn has an accurate read on Byleth here, acknowledging their apparent inactivity as a silent protagonist, and their profound activity and power that they have as the protagonist, tipping the scales of the events of the main story. Flayn also reveals her enthusiasm as her accurate reads end up getting off track, with her eventually going on tangents about fish because of her strong feelings for the food. And as she gets off track and is eventually asked about her age, Flayn awkwardly tries to change the flow of the conversation, showing her somewhat scatterbrained nature. All of Flayn's qualities reveal a certain wealth of energy and potential that can cause her to get in her own way because of her boundless energy. And it's interesting that her long period of inactivity while sleeping has caused her to become supremely active and enthusiastic. And really, it's her youthful exuberance, kindness, and naivete that show off the very best that the Nabateans have to offer, which provides a great contrast to the anti-Nabatean rhetoric of Edelgard, Hubert, and the Agarthans. Rhea typifies many of the problems that the Nabateans could subject humans to through her stagnant, absolutist control of Fodlan. However, it seems that Flayn's youth and exuberance represents hope for the future of the Nabateans in her personality and actions within the context of the game's narrative and her many supports.